Hello and welcome back to the Darkside of Git. I'm Paul and this is our 4th episode in the series. For 2 episodes now we've been talking about history manipulation. We've seen how resetting can help us undo changes, but how it can also interfere with our collaboration. Last time we've discussed resetting in a short episode. Today we'll continue with an even more interesting side of rebasing. You may have heard of it if you've worked in larger teams with strict demands of clear and concise histories. Of course, it's squashing. We've seen how rebase takes a series of commits and reapplies them to a new base commit, one by one. But Git is the coolest tool ever. It lets us tweak this process. The way to tweak it is by initiating an interactive rebase. An interactive rebase is just like the normal one, only now we get to pick what happens at every step of the process. Of course, this is still a rebase, so all the same advantages and pitfalls still apply here. Let's see it in action. We start out with a pretty standard setup. There's a develop branch and our own little feature branch. The workflow in our project is such that we are required to have all of a feature in a single commit. Being diligent and cautious developers, we would of course love to commit and push as often as possible to prevent the loss of something important. We know Git. We are Git masters. We know we can have multiple commits and be safe, and we can squash them into one once we are done. So we finished our work, and now we would like to bring our feature into develop. But first, we want to squash the branch as per our project requirements. Once the command has run, we get some lines in an editor. These lines show us the individual commits we are rebasing. We also notice a nice keyword in front of each. Those keywords allow us to decide what happens at each step of the rebase. By default, all commits are picked. This means that they will be preserved as snapshots in our history. We change the keyword for the second commit and tell Git we want that commit squashed. We still must pick at least one of the commits, otherwise there is nothing to create during the rebase. Where would our changes end up? Once we save and quit the editor, our rebase continues. We get back to the command line and our commit graph now looks like this. We've marked the commit that resulted after the squash as S. In truth, this is the picked commit number 1 previously, but it also holds the changes in the second commit. We've achieved what we needed. Yay! Of course, during the interactive rebase, we can use the keyword reward instead of pick and fix up instead of squash to tell Git that we would like a different commit message. This way, our commit can actually have a beautiful commit message that is descriptive of our feature. Squashing commits allows our features to be atomic, contained in a single commit. Thus, our features can be easily reverted and removed from the codebase. This is immensely powerful. As a side effect, the commit tree is very simple, very few commits compared to a normal project, and all commits hold valuable changes to the repository. The dark side of this is that we are in fact rewriting our project's history, and the pitfalls discussed in last episode still apply. We also lose traceability of the moments when certain changes were incorporated into our feature. And last but not least, we won't be able to undo only one change that we did during the development of the feature. Undoing will be all or nothing. But what could go wrong? We bring back our nice smiley faces which symbolize the developers watching changes in each branch. We run through our rebase again. Notice how we rebase the develop branch. Also note how the feature branch starts from commit number 2 on develop, which is going to be rebased now. What happens is that develop now points at a nice squash commit, but our feature branch has the same history it had before. Commits 1 and 2 on develop are thus preserved and hold all the same changes which are now also present in the squash commit. You can easily imagine that in the described situation, if we were to now merge the feature and develop branches, Git would be really confused about finding all the changes in commits 1 and 2 from develop in both branches, but in commits with different hashes and different histories. It's like the same changes were developed twice, once on develop and once on the feature branch. Merging will end in conflicts, Same goes for rebasing the feature branch. Good! Now that we've discussed a lot of history manipulation and we've seen how this can end in changes being present in two different places, let's see another way of making this happen that does not rewrite history but instead steals bits of it from somewhere else. Our history thief is called the cherry pick, a powerful operation that can have some of the same pitfalls we've seen with resetting and rebasing. We start in our familiar place again. This time we run cherry pick. A cherry pick can be interactive and very precise, but in this case, to really highlight the problem, we are going to pick a whole commit, F9123B, the first commit on the feature branch. The command brings all the changes to a new commit on the develop branch where our head was. Notice how the new commit has a completely new hash, because, of course, it has a new parent. You can imagine that this has the exact same merging pitfall that rebase or reset have. We see the same changes in commits with different hashes. Yet cherry picking is very useful. You might not want to get all the changes from a branch, but only a subset of them, like a hotfix or a necessary module. This avoids a merge with an unfinished feature that might introduce unfinished functionality or bugs. But you need to be very careful. Cherry picking is tempting, but a simple merge might be better. Have a long hard look at what would happen if you merge. It might not be bad at all, and you would avoid all the pitfalls. Once you cherry picked, merging the two branches will be quite the adventure. Same goes for rebasing, of course. Wow, that was some trip. We've covered quite a few history topics. It's time to take a breather. But first, let's get the golden rule of history manipulation down. A golden rule, you say? What might that be? Can you guess? Always, when doing any of the discussed actions, stop and ask yourself, is anyone looking at this branch that I want to affect? Should your answer be no, then you're good. Keep going. Do your stuff. But if your answer is yes, someone else is looking, then stop. Really. Stop. Continuing down this road can lead to a huge mess. By the way, if you know what you are doing, please assume responsibility for this and help your teammates untangle the mess you've created. Leaving things messed up and expecting everyone to deal with the pile of trash you've made is just an inconsiderate move. Don't be that guy or girl. How do I know if anyone is looking at this branch, you ask? Well, it's easy. Is your branch pushed? Any part of it that's gonna be affected? Or maybe one of the affected commits is the source for another branch. Usually this happens if the commit is pushed, but it could be your own branch. Yes, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. If the answer to either is yes, then someone else is looking at that branch. So stop. Do not continue doing what you are doing. Research better ways or just drop it. No one is going to kick your butt if you leave a small mess in Git history. But many people might wish you were dead if they have to fight their way through a merge because of you. Don't risk it. You'll never know when one of them finally loses it. Keyboards are more painful than they look. Thanks for watching this week's episode. This has been Paul, and I really hope to see you next week when we start looking into tips and tricks. I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for this after all of this negativity and all the interdiction. Next week we start looking at how to do things instead of how not to do them. See you there, and if you've liked this episode, please consider liking and subscribing. Bye!